Components of blood and their functions. Plasma. Plasma is the liquid matrix that carries blood cells. Plasma is composed of water, ions for osmotic balance, antibodies for immunity, albumin for buffering, fibrinogen for clotting, carrier proteins for lipids, nutrients for all cells, waste to be removed, hormones for endocrine regulation, and gases to be exchanged. If blood is centrifuged in a test tube or allowed to sit, it will separate into its components. Plasma makes up about 55% of total blood volume. Plasma, since it is the least dense material, mostly water, it is going to float on top of the other materials. The erythrocytes, which are red blood cells, are the most dense, so they settle to the bottom of the test tube. And as a result, you get these three layers. The red blood cells on the bottom, the white buffy coat in between, which are the white blood cells, and the yellowish plasma on top. Blood cells. Red blood cells, also known as erythrocytes or RBCs, transport oxygen from lungs to tissues, and they transport carbon dioxide from tissues to lungs. There are 5 million to 6 million red blood cells per millimeter cubed of blood. The structure of red blood cells is biconcave discs. Their high surface area to volume ratio enhances gas exchange. Red blood cells lack nuclei and mitochondria. Blood cells. Each red blood cell carries about 250 million molecules of hemoglobin, the iron-containing protein that transports gases. Hemoglobin is a tetramer, made of 4 peptides. Each molecule of hemoglobin carries 4 molecules of oxygen or carbon dioxide, so each red blood cell carries 1 billion molecules of oxygen or carbon dioxide. Pictured here is a hemoglobin molecule with 4 oxygen binding sites. The oxygen binding sites have the heme group, the iron that binds to the oxygen. Blood cells. Gas exchange occurs in between red blood cells in the capillaries of the circulatory system and alveoli, the smallest branches of the lungs. Capillaries branch and surround the alveoli. Both structures have high surface area and have walls that are only 1 cell thick, allowing gases to diffuse quickly between lungs and blood. Blood cells. When we inhale, the gas we take into our lungs has a higher concentration of oxygen than blood surrounding the alveoli. The blood surrounding the alveoli has a higher concentration of carbon dioxide than the gas in our lungs. Both oxygen and carbon dioxide diffuse down their concentration gradients in opposite directions. Gas exchange also occurs in capillary beds of tissues. There, oxygen-rich blood coming from the lungs drops off oxygen and picks up carbon dioxide. The blood that returns to the lungs is oxygen poor. Blood cells. Platelets are fragments of large cells known as megakaryocytes. Platelets facilitate blood clotting when vessels are damaged and leak blood. There are 250,000 to 400,000 platelets per millimeter cubed of blood. The diagram on the right shows inactive platelets, which flow through blood vessels, and activated platelets, which form at wound sites. The activated platelets become sticky. Blood clotting. How does clotting take place? Clotting is needed when the wall of a blood vessel is damaged, so that blood and plasma do not leak out. Platelets are activated when they touch the interior of the vessel wall at a wound. Activated platelets mix with protein fibers made of fibrin and form a loose plug at the wound site, which becomes a scab as it dries. Fibrin is the product of an enzyme cascade. In the diagram on the right here, fibrin and platelet are working together to form a clot. Blood clotting. An enzyme cascade is a sequence of enzyme reactions in which the product of each step amplifies the next step, rapidly bringing about the formation of lots of the final product. Fibrin formation is a great example of an enzyme cascade. A simplified version of the steps are: 1. Activated platelets release clotting factors. 2. Clotting factors convert prothrombin into thrombin. And 3. Thrombin converts fibrinogen to fibrin. Blood cells. White blood cells are involved in immune responses. They fight infections of viruses, harmful bacteria, and parasites. There are 5,000 to 10,000 white blood cells per millimeter cubed total. Types of white blood cells include lymphocytes, which fight specific pathogens in the adaptive immune response, granulocytes, which release granules of active chemicals to help fight infections, and monocytes, which engulf foreign structures and process them. Types of white blood cells. All of the blood cells are shown here. The stem cell, which produces them, is on top. With the exception of the thrombocytes, or the platelets, and erythrocytes, or the red blood cells, all the cells shown are types of white blood cells.